Tocqueville warned that this unhealthy obsession with economic equality, combined with an erosion in the respect for liberty and property, would produce what we today would call the welfare state.
Hi, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Philosophyinsights. This is probably one of the most famous arguments about the dangers of democracy. Today, we talk about Alexis de Tocqueville, a French political thinker from the 19th century. Alexis de Tocqueville, a French aristocrat, traveled to the United States in the 1830s to study its prison system, but ended up conducting broader research on American society. His observations culminated in his famous work, Democracy in America, where he provided a detailed analysis of the strengths and pitfalls of democracy as he saw them in America. Tocqueville was fascinated by the democratic revolution he witnessed and its implications for civil liberty. He praised the vibrant civil society and the political engagement of American citizens, viewing these as vital to the functioning of democratic governance. However, Tocqueville also warned about the tyranny of the majority, a scenario in which the rights of smaller or less popular groups are compromised by the will of the majority. Most famously, Tocqueville expressed concern about the tendency towards an overbearing central government, which he feared could stifle individual freedoms and local autonomies. He foresaw the potential for democratic nations to degrade into what he called soft despotism, a condition where most individuals are rendered passive and politically disengaged by an overprotective state.
He was afraid that our egalitarian impulses might someday get the better of us. "I have a passionate love for liberty, law, and respect for rights," he wrote. "Liberty is my foremost passion. But one also finds in the human heart a depraved taste for equality, which impels the weak to want to bring the strong down to their level, and which reduces men to preferring equality in servitude to inequality in freedom." Now, this issue is so critical to our freedoms and our future that I'd like to dwell on it for just a moment. Remember this: free people are not equal, and equal people are not free. Put another way, in terms of economics, think of it this way: free people will earn different incomes. Where people have the same income, they cannot be free. Economic equality in a free society is a snare and a delusion that redistributionists envision. But free people are different people, not programmable robots, so it should come as no surprise that they earn different incomes. Our talents and abilities are not identical. We don't all work as hard. And even if we all were magically made equal in wealth tonight, we'd be unequal in the morning because some of us would spend it and some of us would save it. To produce even a rough measure of economic equality, governments must issue the following orders and back them up with punishment and prisons. Don't be better or work harder than the next guy. Don't come up with any new ideas. Don't take any risks, and don't do anything differently from what you did yesterday. In other words, don't be human. Economic inequality, when it derives from the voluntary interaction of creative individuals and not from political power or connections, testifies to the fact that people are being themselves, each putting his uniqueness to work in ways that are fulfilling to himself and of value to others. As Tocqueville himself might say, vive la différence.
Tocqueville observed that democratic societies, driven by a desire for equality, might inadvertently pave the way for this soft despotism. He noted that as citizens become more equal, they could also become more isolated. This isolation makes each individual less able to achieve their goals independently. Consequently, they turn to the state for support and protection. In this scenario, the state gradually expands its role from a protector of rights to an arbiter of daily life, overseeing and regulating numerous aspects of personal and community affairs. The government, in its paternalistic guise, promises to care for all needs and solve all problems, if it retains central authority. This centralization is then expected to stifle individual initiative and local autonomy, reducing citizens to a state of dependency.
That a man's support for absolute government is in direct proportion to the contempt he feels for his country. He masterfully described how the growth of government could smother our freedoms. Again, in his words, after having thus successively taken each member of the community in its powerful grasp and fashioned him at will, the government then extends its arm over the whole community. It covers the surface of society with a network of small, complicated rules, minute and uniform, through which the most original minds and the most energetic characters cannot penetrate to rise above the crowd. The will of man is not shattered, but softened, bent, and guided. Men are seldom forced by it to act, but they are constantly restrained from acting. Such a power may not destroy, but it prevents existence. It may not tyrannize, but it compresses, enervates, extinguishes, and stupefies a people, till each nation is reduced to nothing better than a flock of timid and industrious animals of which the government is the shepherd.
Tocqueville feared that this extensive control by a central government leads to a uniformity that suppresses individuality and innovation. Local governments, which are closer and thus more responsive to the people's needs, would lose their power and significance, as all decisions are made at a higher level. Moreover, with the state intervening in every aspect of life, individuals will then grow less inclined to take initiative, expecting the government to address all issues. This passivity, while reducing friction in the short term, will lead to a longer-term disengagement from civic duties and responsibilities. Also, the psychological aspect is interesting. Because of how the government is set up, people may begin to perceive themselves more as subjects of a benevolent guardian than as autonomous citizens. They will thus be compliant with the situation.
Tocqueville warned that this unhealthy obsession with economic equality, combined with an erosion in the respect for liberty and property, would produce what we today would call the welfare state. Let me offer you a description of the welfare state. These are my words. Somebody, by the way, not me, but somebody else once said that it got its name because in it the politicians get well and the rest of us pay the fare. Just picture people in a giant circle with each one having his hand in the next guy's pocket. The whole notion of the welfare state rests on this really dumb proposition. Since people are not decent and compassionate enough to assist their deserving fellows in distress, we must expect them to elect politicians who are more decent and compassionate than they are. How ridiculous. Those politicians then take the money from us under threat of imprisonment, launder it through an expensive bureaucracy, and spend what's left not to actually solve the problem, but to manage it into perpetuity for endless dependency, demagoguery, and political gain. And then the advocates of the welfare state compliment themselves for possessing a monopoly on compassion and totally ignore the destructive results of their own handiwork. No thanks.
To counteract the risks of soft despotism, Tocqueville advocated for active citizenship and greater decentralization. He believed that when citizens are involved and invested in their local governance, they are less likely to allow their freedoms to be eroded. Active involvement in community and politics fosters a robust civil society that can serve as a check against the overreach of central power. We definitely can see the relevance of Tocqueville's analysis today in debates over federal versus state powers, the role of government in personal lives, and a world where many feel disconnected from the levels of power. What do you think about the insights by Tocqueville? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more content like this.
So here we are now, decades into the very egalitarian welfare state Tocqueville warned would be the death of American exceptionalism. It threatens to make us like all the other forgettable welfare states that languish in history's dustbins, Greece included. Should we just assume it's inevitable and go along for the ride? Or should we muster the character that built a nation and that Tocqueville identified as quintessentially American? Well, I hope you know the answer. If you're pessimistic, then you're no longer part of the solution. You've become part of the problem. What chance does liberty have if its supposed friends desert it in the hour of need or speak ill of its prospects? Ask yourselves, what good purpose could a defeatist attitude possibly promote? Will it make me work harder for the causes I know are right? Is there anything about liberty that an election or events in Congress disproves? If I exude a pessimistic demeanor, will it help attract newcomers to the ideas I believe in? Is this the first time in history that believers in liberty have lost a few battles? If we simply throw in the towel, will that enhance the prospects for future victories? Or do we turn back just because the hill we have to climb has gotten a little steeper in recent decades? This is not the time to abandon time-honored principles. I can't speak for you, but someday I want to go to my reward and be able to look back and say, I never gave up. I never became part of the problem I tried to solve. I never gave the other side the luxury of winning anything without a rigorous intellectual contest. I never missed an opportunity to do my best for what I believed in, and it never mattered what the odds or the obstacles were. I did my part.